Hello, our users. Hello, Mr. Obtrusive Microphone that I can now see in front of me. We're going to be trying a different audio setup tonight. My name is John Kulas. I'm a 20-year professor of industrial and organizational psychology. About a 12-year user of R for normal, boring statistical applications, but for the majority of that time now, I've also been executing full projects from within the same environment that I specify my R script. And so this is sometimes referred to as literate programming. It's also consistent with this concept of reproducible research in your workflows. But it's something that I'm here every Tuesday at 7 o'clock Eastern and promoting. And so this is intended to be a live, interactive kind of opportunity for people and resource for people who are interested in doing this, but maybe you're not quite sure how to get started or what kind of support you might need or want, and software and hardware and things like that. So we're here for that. We had this idea before AI became super popular, so I'm not sure how popular the real life assistance is in this new world that we're living in, where you have AI to help with every question that you have immediately on demand. But we're going to try to do that as well. So and I say we, sometimes there's people who pop by and join me here. But we're here every Tuesday at 7 o'clock Eastern, hang out for about an hour. We use this metaphor of an academic office hour. And so the thought there is that the door is literally open. Come on in, ask a question. We'll kind of work together toward building whatever it is that you're interested in building. So this shared problem solving is always takes precedent, priority in terms of these weekly live sessions. But in the absence of somebody popping by and saying, hey, how do I do this? We've also been taking a look at focused features, I guess you can call them, and capabilities of the software that we're using to really help facilitate the creation of these products. And so we've also been climbing the alphabet. So we started with A, B, and C, and we're currently up to the letter T. And so what we're going to do with the letter T tonight is we're going to revisit kind of a popular document type that was new to me, I guess, 2 years ago. But it's really growing in popularity, and there's some really neat features of it. So we're going to revisit typist tonight. I'll probably be on, every time I say this, I end up biting myself in the butt. But I might be on a tighter schedule tonight. So I'm going to try to get out of here at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. So we'll see if we can bust through typists. So again, there's in the chat, there are links to this week's slides that you're looking at. There's also, if you don't see them in the chat or the comments, there's also a link to these slides in the description of the video down below. And then I put a second resource there as well, which is if you just want to try this and you're not used to using these processes, I have a template report that you can follow along with and just kind of paste content in. And the only dependency there that you need is Quarto, the software that we've been using. And there's a link, I believe there should be a link to Quarto if you work backwards a little bit on that walkthrough slide that I have. Okay, so if it's going to be a tight week, let's hurry up and get on to it, huh? So let's get our transition here into what happened last week.
Well, Bullwinkle and his talented Bunyan are miles out at sea headed for some unknown destination. Bullwinkle has long since been rocked to sleep.
Yeah, with my very own rock.
And his two captors are standing close guard over his crated hoof. Well, what can be at the bottom of Bullwinkle's bunion?
My foot, maybe?
Meanwhile, in Washington, Rocky has just told his amazing story to the new head of the Weather Bureau, Captain Peter Wrongway Peachfuzz.
So you see, we gotta get Bullwinkle back.
But why should the Weather Bureau help you, Rocky?
Because Bullwinkle's bunion can tell you when it's gonna rain.
It can?
Yeah.
Then he's a valuable national asset. Get me the White House. Hello, hello?
But in punching the button on his desk, Captain Peachfuzz had inadvertently made connection with the Air Defense Commander.
Hello? What? What? Who is it? Right.
What is it, Major?
An emergency call from the White House.
An enemy attack?
No.
Big rescue operation?
No.
Then what?
We're supposed to intercept a flying squirrel.
That sounds very important. Intercepting a flying squirrel. Speaking of, whoa, that's not a squirrel. It's a flightless bird. So we have a flying squirrel and we have a flightless bird. How about that? So last week we took a look at Shiny, and of course by flightless bird I'm referencing Chilly Willy there. the world's cutest but most annoying penguin. He's really annoying if you're a polar bear or just a bear in general. He's always pulling pranks on bears. But last week we took a look at Shiny, and Shiny is a package that is very popular both within Python contexts as well as R contexts. And I kind of mentioned last week as we were live scripting that this is not my favorite project to endeavor to do within R. The scripting is just different. There's actually a different reference that's used for the type of scripting that you do. I forgot to double check, but it's called something like reflexive or reactive programming. It just feels different. The scripting feels different. But it does create these nice interactive documents, and I did go ahead and put an iframe here in this week's slides that kind of displays the app that we created last week with the help of the Shiny assistant. And so even though I don't like scripting Shiny products, I guess, the support that we have access to now has grown, and so it does make it a lot more palatable. It does make it a lot more accessible just having this Shiny assistant. So on the right is the minimalist app that we created, and we did that with the assistance of the Shiny assistant. And now it did last week throw us an initial error, but that error had descriptive enough feedback that we were able to overcome it really quickly. So still a fantastic tool. I should have played with this iframe a little more. It's kind of, the window is too small for the size of the app. But I don't think I'm gonna host that app very long. I just put it up so I could share it this week if anyone wanted to go in there and play with it and see some of the functionality that we have with this Shiny assistant assisted app. Now, last week we also talked about kind of different ways to approach Shiny, and historically these standalone apps, which are kind of like simple dashboards. So I think of them, I guess, as single page or single tab dashboards. That's probably the simplest way to view Shiny apps. Now, if you want to get a little more complex, you can embed those within larger dashboards. You can craft those dashboards using Quarto, the software that we've been talking about. You can also use a package called Flex Dashboards. There's different ways to embed that within a larger product. We didn't talk about those much last week. I've built a few of those, and again, it's if you can do the standalone, then you can take the scripting that you have in the standalone app and port it over to a larger dashboard if you're interested in that. And then we also alluded to, but didn't spend any time really exploring Shiny Live, and Shiny Live is yet another package. So these are all packages. Traditionally within the R ecosystem, you can think of these as similar to ggplot or the tidyverse or Magrittr or whatever your favorite package is. These you can think of these similarly. I'm laughing a little bit because I just came across the need to use a fantastic package that I forgot about this week, but it's called Lubridate. And Lubridate is a Hadley Wickham package. And what it does is it has a lot of internal knowledge and internal kind of logic within it to help identify and project date information from all sorts of different formats. So Lubridate, I was very happy to revisit that this week on a particular project that had some oddly formatted date information in it, and Lubridate took really good care of that. But we're not talking Lubridate, we're talking Shiny. And so Shiny Live is an app that kind of bypasses some of the traditional requirements of Shiny that made it a little less fun to work with. And the main issue here is when you want to share what you've created. So sharing what you've created requires some dependencies on the server side. And so the server just needs to have the access to the same Shiny information that we have on the programming side from the package. And so there's different hosting solutions, but traditionally those were kind of tailored for specifically Shiny. And this Shiny Live package is trying to bypass that. So the Shiny Live package is trying to give you a solution or a possible solution where you can craft something that's fully interactive from the perspective of the user, like we have here, the silly Palmer Penguins dashboard, or app, it's also called. But you can have that and deploy that on a more normally set up server, so a server that doesn't have all of the requirements on it. And by server, we're just talking about a shared computer that's set up to host or store the information that you actually want to share with a broader audience. So Shiny Live, if someone's out there and you want to do a Shiny app or a Shiny dashboard, but maybe want to know, maybe want some extra options in terms of how you choose to share that, Shiny Live might be a package that you might be interested in checking out. Okay, so that's Shiny. Again, we can revisit that or any of these topics if anyone pops by and says, hey, that's something that we might want to take a deeper look at. Let me know and we can certainly cover it. Otherwise, Shiny is not something that I personally would choose to delve into. I do not enjoy it because I still consider myself a novice to intermediate kind of R scripter. And the just composition of those Shiny apps in terms of the scripting, it's just not fun. I don't have fun with it. I think it interferes with my ability to kind of reinforce the schema that I have for how I like to script. Maybe that's it. I don't. Maybe I'm just being a baby. I'm probably just being a baby. So let's get into tonight's topic. And tonight's topic is a lot more fun. Tonight's topic is, again, subjectively, I'm saying, more fun. This is going to look more like traditional scripting, creating static documents, so not documents that are focused on things like interactive elements. Traditionally, when we use these processes to craft documents, there was an HTML tradition and there was a PDF tradition, and the PDF tradition was tied to this scripting called tech, and more commonly, kind of a macro version of tech called LaTeX. So LaTeX scripting created PDF documents, and markdown and markup scripting created HTML documents. And the LaTeX tradition or the tech tradition came first, so that's been around since I think 76 or so. The guy that created it, his name's Donald Knuth, and not always, but I'm such a cartoon fan. There was also a famous cartoonist called Donald Bluth. He was kind of prominent around the same time. But I believe that Knuth came up with his typesetting system in the 1970s, roughly 76 or so, mid-70s to late 70s. So that was the tradition that historically has been used to create PDF documents. Before we get into the typist, let me share with you what a LaTeX specified report actually looks like, just to give you a sense of some of the scripting of it instead of building one, because I think we want to spend time on typist tonight, not on scripting using LaTeX. But I'm going to pull up one of my specifications that creates a report, and you can see from the YAML here that I'm using a lot of LaTeX packages. And so one of the differences that we're going to see between the LaTeX tradition and this newer approach to creating PDFs called typist is because LaTeX has been around for so long, there are just a ton of different extensions and packages and capabilities that you can include in your document. Each one of these most of these forward package specifications that you see in the front matter of my QMD here. Is this an ARM? No, this is an RMD. So this is using the old R markdown kind of approach, but the information contained within is the same as it would be within the newer scripting kind of environment. But each of these /use package specifications is attempting to extend the base capabilities of LaTeX to do things like control margins, control headers, control footers, use different sorts of fonts, and so a lot of the specification, a lot of the scripting here uses this / convention to communicate to the compiler that, okay, this is not something that I want you to repeat in terms of the semantics themselves, but this is a command. This is a LaTeX command. So this specification using these LaTeX commands actually generates a report that looks great. I'm fine with the report. It's a PDF. It's a PDF that has a header with logos on it. It has some larger font. It has some kind of crazy font on it. It has a footer on it. It has a great table of contents. It has columns with images and text and little lines. All of these things are considerations and style choices that are consequential in terms of scripting using the traditional LaTeX system. And so one of the advantages of typist is that the actual scripting, the specification, is not going to be as tied to that traditional look in terms of scripting. So the typist specification in terms of writing these documents is less reliant on some of those kind of meta commands and script looking functions that you see in there. Now, typist exists just like Shiny. Typist, just like Shiny, and we've talked about a few different things. Quarto exists kind of on its own as well. Typist is its own endeavor. So there are people who are working on this way of crafting documents that have nothing to do with OR, have nothing to do with Python, have nothing to do with Quarto. Now, Quarto, one of the document types that it supports are typist documents, and this is great, and it's been a lot of fun playing with them. And so what these typist documents do is they allow you to script a document looking very similar to how it might look if you're creating an HTML document. And this is important because the HTML document scripting tends to be a little more straightforward in terms of being readability and being able to read through it and understand what it's trying to do. So the Quarto facilitation of typist documents allows not only kind of more straightforward scripting, so you don't have to use LaTeX and no LaTeX, but it also renders these documents incredibly quick. So it bypasses an intermediary step that traditionally we've needed with LaTeX authored documents, which is the creation of a TEX file, so a TEX extension file. And that's really what's used to compile the final nice looking end product. Okay, so I'm not going to talk, I've probably spoken more than I should about kind of some of the under the hood details of typist versus LaTeX versus HTML. But these typist documents are facilitated using Quarto, the platform that we've been using. And the great thing about that is that one of the main reasons we're using Quarto is that it combines not just the text itself, not just focused on the words that you write, but it also allows for the embedding of the quantitative aspects of your report or paper or presentation. And of course, that's what we're interested in as people who use R, the scripting language. And so what I have here on this second to last page on this week's slides is I have just a few different typist capabilities that we can test out here tonight. And some of these we've looked at before. So we've actually looked at on the left here under typist, we have a conference poster. We've looked at that. We've also looked at this flyer, this bulletin. So I don't think we'll start there, but maybe we'll revisit those if we have a little bit of time. What we haven't spent any time on are just a straightforward letter. So there's a template for that as well. And then this is what I really like about using this process to craft academic papers is either using Papaja, which is the traditional package that we've used within R, or using APA Quarto, which is an extension that does the same thing. It creates APA formatted papers within Quarto using R. But the thing that's really great about both of those, so the extension and the package, is that you can render your manuscript to look like it's a copy edited journal manuscript. And so I think we'll check that out as well. So what we're looking at right now is a capability to craft a typist document that renders a very nice looking, final format looking paper. And so the reason this is important, if you're, for instance, a graduate student and interested in creating a portfolio or sharing a portfolio, you can take your APA formatted manuscript that a professor might want, and with just a single line or two, you can change that into a very nice formatted looking, like it came straight out of a journal paper. If you want to share that, for example, with a potential for future employer, or I don't know, potential future spouse or something. If you want to try to impress somebody, it's an easy way to impress. And then as I was looking for different types of documents that we could try tonight, I did stumble across kind of a musical notation capability using typist. Now, this isn't within Quarto itself. This is actually something that's existing outside of Quarto, so it's okay. We can ask Quarto to give us a source typist file, and then we can take and further use that in a context like using musical notation. So anyway, we might check it if we have time, but I thought that was neat. So there's hyperlinks if you access this week's slides. There's hyperlinks on each of these images it'll take you someplace that will help you actually recreate what you're seeing here. So let's just before we get into these 5 different possible formats, let's just see what a typist file looks like. And so once again, this is what you're looking at is a local preview of this week's slides. So I'm gonna go to the online hyperlink, so I have available to me those hyperlinks as well. Hopefully the audio is okay as I test out this new setup. I cut these up because most people like to watch these not live but after the fact. So I've been going in and doing timestamps. So here's some silly music, and here's Rocky and Bullwinkle, and here's less meaningful stuff. So I get to hear myself, which is never a pleasant or fun endeavor. But so I'll be getting some feedback, but I won't be getting feedback until after the session in terms of how the audio actually works. Hopefully it's not too in and out. That's my main concern here with a different setup, is that it's just going to be kind of, as I turn my head to look, it's going to be a little off and on. Let's start a new project. And the reason I'm doing this is because some of the capabilities that we want to look at are going to be facilitated by Quarto extensions, and those Quarto extensions are going to be easiest to work with if we're working within a project directory. So we're going to go new project. And I didn't even look at those. What are those options there? Quarto project, Quarto website. I guess it probably gives us some template information, but I don't really care. So we don't need to do that. But we can call it typist. So I'm just all I really care about here is having my own directory. So I'm gonna call it typist. I don't care where it is all that much. Let's go ahead and create it. It already exists. We might have done this before. Let's call it typist 2, which is a terrible convention. Don't get in the habit of just putting a number after a folder or after a version of a paper. One of the reasons I love doing this process in terms of crafting documents and larger documents within this environment that historically people are taught facilitate analytical purposes, and so you do your analyses in here. One of the reasons I like doing them in here and using GitHub as kind of a shared repository for storing information, is you don't end up with ridiculous file names like paper 1.27.2026 in parentheses version 5. That drove me nuts as a professor. That was the worst thing ever, actually seeing that. I had so many of those. Okay, so we just chose new project. So there's nothing in our project directory here. You can see it's users, admin, desktop, typist 2. If I go on my Windows Explorer, I should be able to find that as well. What did I say? Desktop. What the heck is my desktop? I don't know why these icons keep showing up. Like I don't like this view. There it is. Oh, you stupid icons. Let's see. View details. That's what we like, details. So in the typist 2 folder, we're just seeing the rproj file. And again, you know, if we use the new IDE, Positron, it uses project folders as well, but it somehow bypasses the necessity of that rproj file. So it's one of those new experience things, I guess, is you're going to have a similar workflow, but you're not necessarily going to have the same files specified. Okay, so let's go Quarto document. And let's do a PDF first. Now, one of the things we did notice, and I am a version or two behind in terms of my RStudio. So I don't know if this wizard maybe has some extra options in terms of documents, but currently HTML, PDF, the traditional PDF, and a Word document are the three kind of default types that you get through the wizard. It doesn't really matter what you choose here because we're gonna play with that in our YAML anyway. And so the YAML is the front matter. It specifies kind of overall how did the document look by default. And the boilerplate here is this is going to be the same if we choose an HTML file or a PDF or a Word document. And again, we've seen over the weeks that there are so many different formats that you can specify. So you can have markdown formats. You can have all kinds of different things that are beyond what you see in the wizard. So the wizard, I think the wizard is probably helpful just to see this boilerplate information. Now, if you want to test this out in terms of prior to typist, what you would actually expect to see when you're generating a PDF, you're going to also within RStudio want a package called TinyTech, and TinyTech is here. Now with TinyTech, historically, I don't know if it's the same now, but historically you needed 2 steps to activate TinyTech. So you needed to not only install the package as you normally would for a normal R package, but you also need a command to kind of activate that package historically. So again, I haven't been relying as much on PDFs, traditionally rendered PDFs recently, so I can't say for sure that that's still the sequence that you need to take, but just be aware that you might need to take that sequence. So let's try to render this, just a traditional PDF, and I want to pay attention to the timing of it. So we'll call it Snoopy, because I have a picture of Snoopy looking at me right here. So I forgot to time it, but I guess we have a little clock here. So 5, 6, 7. And also the other kind of time dependency here on traditionally rendered PDFs is if there's any sort of packages or extensions that you need, that's going to really, so about 20 seconds, it looks to me like it probably took. But here you see a very nice looking PDF. Now if I change that to, if I look in my folder now, you see that I have the original scripting specification called snoopy.qmd, and then I also have the PDF. There should be an option here to keep that intermediary file. And then we should see a 4th file here, which is a text file, and that's really what's that's really what's taking the time, is the specification of that, and then the transition of that file into the rendered PDF itself. And so there we go. It's the same file, but now we see this tech file, and this is the information. This is the scripting that's actually used to create that PDF. And this, one of the great things that Quarto does, and Posit with our markdown prior to Quarto, is they give us the ability to script using a QMD, and from that script they're able to generate a file like this that's necessary historically to generate a PDF. But let's so that keep tech is only going to be meaningful for a traditionally rendered PDF. Let's try a typist and keep an eye on the rendering speed here. Now the other thing to keep an eye on, I guess, is the wonderful Q. I still haven't figured out what font this is, but I love the typist Q. The typist capital Q comes all the way almost underneath the U. I don't know why I love it so much, but I love it. It just looks slick. These look very slick. Now, one of the nice things about these typist documents is you should be able to use some of the same kind of tweaking that we use, that we like to use with standard Quarto document. When I say standard documents, I guess I'm thinking about HTML documents. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to wrap some of this in some fenced divs, and we'll see if we can actually take the running code, which is everything here. So from the second title block down, and we'll see if we can put it in 2 columns using Quarto markdown language. And so this is something we would not expect to be able to do within a traditionally specified PDF. So this is the kind of specification that we would likely need LaTeX for, even if we're operating within Quarto. But the expectation is that this would likely be operational, and of course it isn't. Try something else here. So let's try callouts. So I'm going to try to take this when you click the render button information, see if that renders in a note, in a callout type note. There, we have that. So columns, we might need to play with columns a little bit. It's possible that I have my specification not quite right. We may need a layout command instead of a columns command. But we would have to play with that a little bit. So maybe I'll do that between this week and next week, is I'll do a column specification within a typist file, and I'll let you know if there's anything special needed to specify that. I thought columns worked. It's possible that I didn't specify them exactly right there when I rendered that. So let's leave that note in here and take a look at some of the different neat specific formats that we can specify. So the one that I guess a couple of them that I was interested in, one was just a letter. So and it doesn't sound, hey, I know Morristown. I didn't see that. Morristown, New Jersey, represent. Whoop, whoop. So it doesn't look all that sexy, but just having, again, a header, having a left justified address block, having a right justified kind of status block, all that stuff is important. So when we're actually crafting our documents using these processes, that stuff becomes consequential and important. You have to specify it through plain text. This is not something that you're going to go through a GUI, a graphical user interface, and hit an icon that says I want it to be right justified. Now I'm lying a little bit, because in our studio, we can do, what is it, source? Edit? Editor, probably. No, we can go in there and we can actually ask for some of those kind of more traditional interfaces to be available for us. I don't like operating in that environment, so I usually stay away from it. I forget specifically what the commands are for that. So let's actually play with this format here, if I can get back to it. So if I want to have a template for a letter, that's going to be facilitated through use of this extension. So on the hyperlink page, I have an installing little code block here. And if I copy that and go into my RStudio session at the terminal, I'm going to right click, because your shortcut keys might not always operate as you want them to within terminals. So you can try to control or command V, or you might need to right click that. I'm going to trust the authors, create a subdirectory. Now that I don't think we want, so that's kind of new to me. I don't remember seeing that before. Now, would you like to continue because it requires changes? Yes, that is standard. So that's a standard Quarto type of command that we get. Okay, so yeah, that's what we want. So I wanted this extensions folder to be located within the main project directory. Now, when we load on other capabilities and other templates, it should just add to the number of folders within this underscore extensions location. But we should be able to take what we have, and I know what we have isn't a lot. Let's put an image in there. See if we can. Dancing with the Stars. If you're gonna type Dancing Snoopy, I mean, I did not expect to see Dancing with the Stars. Now, I'm a Snoopy snob, so I gotta find, like, this is a 1980s Snoopy, and I'm not a big fan of 80s Snoopy. There we go. Now, this is a classic Snoopy right there. That looks like at least the 70s, maybe a little older. You know, when you get a really old Snoopy, he's got teeth. Does anyone know the old Snoopy with teeth? This would be 50s probably. No, not those kind of teeth. He actually had fangs. Where's some Snoopy fangs? I guess he had teeth in the 80s as well. Oh well. Okay, I'm not going to spend all that time looking for a toothy Snoopy. But we will put a picture of Snoopy in here. See if these templates can handle it. And again, the convention, using the scripting, using the way that we're scripting, is exclamation point, square bracket, and then in parentheses, you put the file path to the image. Now, so this is a good time to actually mention, one of the reasons you might be interested in using typist is, by default, it's going to handle more image types. My understanding is it's going to handle more image types more easily. We saw a few weeks ago, we tried to render an SVG, a scalable vector graphic image type, using the traditional PDF specification, and that was not something, that was something that we would have to actually spend a little time on to get it to work. Now you're seeing the size here is kind of crazy. We could play with that if we want, but I like a big Snoopy. So let's leave big Snoopy there. He's happy, he's dancing. Looks like he was probably generated in the 70s, so we like that. So we were gonna try to put this in a letter format. And so the letter format probably gonna need to be specified within our YAML. So I'm actually just gonna copy this entire YAML, because ours doesn't have a whole lot in it. It's just untitled and typist. And now this is the specification here on lines 11 and 12 that should pull up from our underscore extensions folder. And so somewhere in that underscore extensions folder, it says what I want is this default specification. We'll leave Morristown on there. We'll just see if it works. Now we're seeing some kind of interesting things here. There's There's some interesting characters here that probably have consequence. So these forward slashes look like they're line breaks. Now, it's a convention that is shared also from kind of traditional PDF specifications. And there we see. So really what it does is it has impact on the header information. So I'm seeing this header up here. I'm seeing, again, my address information to the left. And then there's another piece of information here on the right. And then the substance of my letter, I'm saying, "Dear sir, please remember this nice dancing Snoopy. Sincerely yours, Kulas." The substance of it probably doesn't matter to this template so much. So we could play with this if we wanted to get Acme Corp and 123 Glenwood on the same line. I'm guessing, without reading the directions, because that's always more fun, I'm guessing if we take that forward slash off, that these two things, even though they're on different lines, line 7 and line 8 within my YAML, they probably will render on the same line in my new typist letter. Excuse me. Yeah, so that forward slash is specifying line break. Now, technically, traditionally, there's a difference between a new... There's different ways to specify that. Man, Donald Knuth, he was very specific about new lines, new pages, hard returns, all that kind of stuff. So there's probably some consequence, but the forward slash, or is that a backslash? That's a forward slash, right? Forward slash itself is just saying, hey, give me a new line. Or that's the effect that it's having. I can't say with any certainty that that's what the command itself is, because like I said, there are some meaningful differences across line breaks, hard returns, etc. So let's take a look at this nice journal format. Before we do that, let's do one other thing. So we should be able to ask for the source, like we asked for the source tech file to be saved with a PDF. If you remember, that was this tech file. We should also be able to ask for the source type file to be kept. And I'm curious about that. Curious about that because that's going to be consequential for some of our typist file types that aren't currently supported by Quarto, because we should be able to generate a TYP typist file and then compile it outside of Quarto and make, for example, those musical notations. Keep type, it looks like what I want. I just saw it. Keep type. All right, there we are. Okay. So let's see. Now there's a little bit of a complication here because we're using this extension. We know that indentations can be consequential within this front matter bit. We'll see if this blows up. Yeah, it blew up. So let's try. Let's try just typist. Neat. Okay, so we did get that source file to be saved here. Now, one of the differences is this should, at least it's presented as being a little easier to read as a human going through here and reading it than a tech file is. Now, I can't confirm that, just kind of doing a quick visual scroll. We have 353 lines here, and with our tech file, I guess I would have to. You know, it's funny. It kept all the recipient and sent information as well. I guess we should look at that file and see how different it actually looks. Oh yeah, it just ignored them. So it just didn't print them at all. So it ignored a bunch of information from my YAML. Okay, so let's do another one of these. I'm so I'm so all over the place tonight. I'm sorry. We should have probably, I should have probably thought this one out a little more in terms of what we will check out and what we won't check out. On top of this, I'm kind of keeping an eye on the clock because I want to try to get out of here fairly close to 7 my time. So I have another, what I did there as I was talking is we're now on a different extension page, and what this does is it permits the rendering in those nice copy edited journal type document formats. So something like you might see in an academic journal. Now historically, one of the purposes of LaTeX is to be able to render these types of formatted documents. So many journals, depending on the discipline, but psychology is not so, psychology, my discipline, doesn't have a lot of this, but the hard sciences, it's more common to actually have LaTeX templates for journals in the hard sciences. So when you submit a paper to these academic journals within the hard sciences, they may have just a simple file for you to reference and to generate your information that looks in a format that looks kind of impressive. And so it's just kind of impressive looking. I'm going to go through the same process that we went through for the letter, which is just to copy, use this nice copyable code chunk or code block option here on GitHub. And I'm going to paste that into my terminal. And we'll see if it asks for a subdirectory this time. Again, that's not something I was expecting. What I am expecting is that we'll get another folder here placed in our underscore extensions folder. And again, this is why we're using a project directory. It's just, they did ask for subdirectory again. Yes, we want to continue. Overwrite the, okay, so it wants to overwrite our QMD, which is, why does it want that? That one's a little weird. So there's a bibliography that it put in there. So this gave us quite a bit. So in the extensions file, now there's a letter. There's a letter which we had there originally, and then there's an AMS. Now the authors of these files, it looks like they came from the same source, which is this Quarto dash extension. I guess I should have paid a little bit of attention to that. And I went one folder too deep. And so the bib file, that's kind of interesting. They did a bibtech formatted reference for us, so that's kind of nice. And then they also gave us, yeah, it looks like that was their naming convention. So they're giving us a template file that we can work with, that we can start with, and that's nice. I mean, we could have also just copied it, but this should give us, we'll see if it works, but this should render for us a journal formatted PDF document. Only element functions can be used as selectors. So that one I'm not sure. That one strikes me as a little odd. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Let's see if we can deconstruct this a little bit. I'm going to take off some of the information. We'll go through a few renderings here. Take off the bibliography. The error that we're seeing, I am not understanding the back tracing on that. It's saying, let's do a quick search on that. Now, one of the things about the typist versus the traditional LaTeX rendering is the traditional LaTeX rendering has a long tradition of use, and so the debugging might be a little easier. I'm gonna see if maybe we can stumble across someone else. Locate was depreciated. So I'm curious if this is something we could render outside of Quarto. Okay, so here's someone saying that it's a new typist error in latest Quarto that wasn't there in 1.6. So, all right, that one might be beyond us this week. Man, I got a few things I gotta do for next week. I gotta do columns in a standard typist document. I gotta do debugging on this. See if we can get one of these nice rendered papers. Let's do one of these other default types as long as we're here. We can't end on a sour note like that. Let's take a look at a conference poster. So, my crew, so the people that I work with on research, we've been doing conference posters using these processes for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years now. And so by tradition, there were different ways to construct conference posters. One of the popular ways was to put all of your information on a PowerPoint slide, but just do very small font. Now, of course, the advantage of using a template, using this plain text scripting, is that we can keep everything self-contained within the script file itself. So something like a nice visual like this, a nice ggplot, we can specify within our scripting. The same way we specify the entire layout of the document. Now, one of the limitations of these, traditionally, just having done it now for a few years, is that there are typically some limitations in terms of number of columns, kind of some of the stylistic elements are not the easiest to tweak or play with, but we'll see here. So let's play with this and see if we can get the default conference poster. And I'm going to use the same process. So I'm going to copy the installation command, go to the terminal, right click, and paste that in. I just want to make sure I'm in the right kind of terminal space here. I think I am. Man, they're all asking for subdirectories. I wonder if that's a newer thing. It's weird because these are all Quarto commands, and I'm trying to talk while I'm interacting with the computer. These are all these are Quarto commands that we're using, and I don't have a new Quarto installation. So this should have been something that I recognized with a recent extension installation. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. They all want to use this typist too. Now I wonder if that's going to throw the same error. Oh, you know what it's doing? It's taking the project folder. It probably doesn't like that we have too many extension types within the same project folder. So I'm glad we did this. So let me try one more thing before we drop. Let's try a new, coming into a fresh. So even though we saw very quickly that there was the potential for typist 3. Oh, someone's gonna look down from heaven and not be happy with me. But we saw that there was potentially a Quarto version issue on that error that we saw, but I'm just kind of, my intuition says that it's more likely that we're trying to stuff too many capabilities within the same project folder. So let's go back. Let's do the fancy academic article one more time. Let's give it one more try here. So I'm going to try it now in a fresh project folder. and my spidey sense is telling me that this might, maybe this will get around our issue. Yes, trust the authors. No, and it could be a subdirectory too. Maybe we need a subdirectory. I don't know. Now the weird thing, where are you? Okay. So let's see if we can render it now. No, okay. Same error, so my spidey sense was not good on that one. So let's try to go back to typist 2. Let's see what's going on with the poster. See if we can get a poster. I don't think we tried this, did we? I don't think we tried to render it. Man, what's going on, Quarto? Getting the same error. So this really kind of stymies me. I wonder, you know what it might be? It might be that we have this intermediary.type file that is still in here. Go away, typist. We don't need you. Now that doesn't explain what happened when we tried it in a new project directory, but we're getting the same error. Let me do. Let's see what the most recent Quarto version is. Let's see. Oops, got too many. I can't just do a search for Quarto because I have too many times I've gone to Quarto. Let's see what their most recent version is here. .8. Yeah, I don't. So it might be a Quarto version issue. I guess we can try one more extension on here. There's another one that might be this. It might actually be the same package. Actually, I think it's the same extension. They just have two different capabilities on them. But we'll try it fresh again. I'm gonna close out of RStudio just in case there is something local here that I'm not recognizing that's going on. And since we've been so bad with the other typist conventions, we'll just call it typist 4. And then if I can't get this to work, boy, next week's gonna have a long recap of this week. But I'm really surprised. Really surprised that we're kind of seeing some of these issues because typist and using these extensions have not had any of these issues previously. Again, maybe it's the subdirectory thing. I don't know. I don't see why. If this doesn't work, we're going to spend a little time. We'll try a subdirectory, and if that doesn't work, it almost has to be. Well, I don't want to say it's a Quarto issue because I don't know that. But these extensions, what they give you is they're giving you these default QMDs that theoretically should render using the line 13 and 14 specification that we're actually seeing here, which is saying I want to use that extension. Wow. What is going on, typist? So this one is at least a little more. This one makes a little more sense. So it's saying it doesn't. It's saying it doesn't have access to fonts. So if I were to download some fonts on my computer, this one looks like it would actually work. Let's try one last thing. Let's try its subdirectory. I can't believe that that's going to have any consequence. And then it's a good thing I don't have IT support anymore, because I would have someone knocking down my door saying, "What are you doing? Populating your desktop with all this junk. What's wrong with you, Kulas?" You know, I got in trouble the first university where I was a longtime professor. I gave away so many keys to a shared lab space because I had a lot of trusted undergraduates. And then I also gave away a ton of books. So I gave away some of my own books. At some point, I didn't have any copies of my own book. But, you know, they go off and they're off doing other things. And I would lose, I don't know, I guess I would lose books. And I would lose keys. But the keys were very consequential because the university, like, blacklisted me. Like, no, you do. So at some point, I couldn't get into buildings because they wouldn't give me any keys because I gave away too many keys, and I lost a key. So I lost a key to get access to a building. And then I don't know what I did, how I got it. Maybe I broke in. I don't remember. Why are we talking about this? Okay, we're trying a subdirectory. I don't know why that would have any consequence. Yeah. So same issue. So some of these extensions, the letter one, which is the least interesting one probably, worked fine. These and the base typist files worked fine as well. So, you know, those, again, they're very fast. They permit some of the scripting that we use in HTML crafted documents, which is nice. It's an advantage over scripting using LaTeX. And there's more shared content with typist scripting than there is with traditional PDF scripting, and the speed is just so fast. But next week I'll reproduce these errors. I'm not going to be able to get to them tonight, sorry. But in the interceding week, I'll reproduce these errors, and I'll share with you what problem we had with the extensions. It looks to me like it's the same problem that's shared across the extensions, but I will figure that out, and we'll present that next week. All right, so sorry we weren't able to get some of these templates, but tune in next week and you can see what they actually look like. And ideally, I'm guessing you also figure out what the issue was. Maybe it is a Quarto issue. I think the first thing I'm going to do is maybe try to install an older version of Quarto and see if it compiles with that. And then we'll know if it was a Quarto issue or not. But it's odd that we're getting the same error using different kind of folder structure specifications while still using the default template. Okay, that's a bummer. Sorry about that, folks. But next week, tune in and we'll see what it was. And also next week, we'll be on to the letter U, which I had no idea what we're going to do with U. Maybe undo the problems this week. Next week's U might be undoing this week's problems. That would be kind of a cheat, so it probably won't be that, but it'll be fun. Okay, thanks everybody. Good night.